Imagine a city whose harbors never slept, where silver from Spanish mines poured in by the shipload, where purple dye worth more than gold stained the hands of kings, where the greatest navy the Western world had ever seen guarded an empire that stretched from Africa to Spain. Now imagine that city burning for 17 straight days, its people slaughtered or chained, its walls torn down stone by stone, its very soil cursed so nothing would ever grow again. This is the story of Carthage, a civilization that ruled the seas for 6 centuries, only to be erased so completely that we still feel the echo of Rome's final verdict: Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed.
Tonight, we dive into the bloodiest naval rivalry in ancient history, the 3 Punic Wars between Rome and Carthage. 3 wars, 118 years of almost uninterrupted conflict, 500,000 dead, fleets of thousands sunk, and in the end, one of the greatest cities the world has ever known reduced to ash and legend. You will stand on the deck of a Carthaginian quinquereme as its bronze ram tears through Roman hulls. You will watch Roman marines storm across the corvus into a storm of spears and fire. You will feel the desperation of a city under siege, building warships in secret workshops while Roman legions close in. And you will witness the final apocalyptic flames that ended a civilization. This is not a tale of heroes and villains. It is a tale of 2 unstoppable forces colliding until only one could remain. One built on trade, seafaring genius, and mercantile empire. The other on iron discipline, citizen legions, and relentless expansion. When they met, the Mediterranean itself seemed to burn. And it begins with a city founded in legend. Long before Rome was more than a collection of mud huts on 7 hills, a woman named Elissa fled tyranny in the Phoenician city of Tyre. The year was 814 BCE. Legend says her brother, King Pygmalion, murdered her husband for gold. She gathered loyal followers, sailed west, and landed on the North African coast. The local Berber king offered her as much land as an ox hide could cover. Elissa, better known to history as Dido, cut the hide into thin strips and encircled an entire hill. On that hill rose Byrsa. Around it, a perfect circular harbor. And from that harbor, the city the Romans would call Carthago. The location was genius: a narrow entrance to the sea, double harbors, one commercial, one military, linked by a channel. Fertile plains behind, producing grain, olives, and wine in abundance. Within 2 centuries, Carthage eclipsed her mother city, Tyre. By 600 BCE, Carthaginian ships dominated the western Mediterranean. They sailed to Spain for silver and tin, past the Pillars of Hercules into the Atlantic for Cornish tin and West African gold. They founded trading posts that became cities: Ibiza, Cadiz, even as far as the Canary Islands. Their warships were the finest of the age: quinqueremes, 5s, with 5 men per oar on 3 levels, 200 rowers moving as one, bronze rams weighing half a ton, decks packed with marines in bronze-scale armor carrying long pikes and short swords. Carthage did not conquer with armies. She conquered with trade. Treaties with local tribes, alliances with Etruscan cities against Greek rivals, a network of ports that made her the Amazon of the ancient world. Rome, meanwhile, was busy uniting Italy. By 300 BCE, she controlled the peninsula south of the Po, but she had no fleet, no tradition of seafaring. Her soldiers were farmers who fought in summer and returned home for harvest. The 2 powers signed treaties. Carthage recognized Roman influence in Italy.
Rome stayed out of the western seas. Peace held until Sicily. Long before Rome was more than a collection of mud huts on 7 hills, a woman named Elissa fled tyranny in the Phoenician city of Tyre. The year was 814 BCE. Legend says her brother, King Pygmalion, murdered her husband for gold. She gathered loyal followers, sailed west, and landed on the North African coast. The local Berber king offered her as much land as an ox hide could cover. Elissa, better known to history as Dido, cut the hide into thin strips and encircled an entire hill. On that hill rose Byrsa. Around it, a perfect circular harbor. And from that harbor, the city the Romans would call Carthago. The location was genius. A narrow entrance to the sea, double harbors, one commercial, one military, linked by a channel. Fertile plains behind, producing grain, olives, and wine in abundance. Within 2 centuries, Carthage eclipsed her mother city, Tyre. By 600 BCE, Carthaginian ships dominated the western Mediterranean. They sailed to Spain for silver and tin, past the Pillars of Hercules into the Atlantic for Cornish tin and West African gold. They founded trading posts that became cities, Ibiza, Cadiz, even as far as the Canary Islands. Their warships were the finest of the age. Quinqueremes, 5s, with 5 men per oar on 3 levels. 200 rowers moving as one. Bronze rams weighing half a ton. Decks packed with marines in bronze scale armor, carrying long pikes and short swords. Carthage did not conquer with armies. She conquered with trade. Treaties with local tribes, alliances with Etruscan cities against Greek rivals, a network of ports that made her the Amazon of the ancient world. Rome, meanwhile, was busy uniting Italy. By 300 BCE, she controlled the peninsula south of the Po, but she had no fleet, no tradition of seafaring. Her soldiers were farmers who fought in summer and returned home for harvest. The 2 powers signed treaties. Carthage recognized Roman influence in Italy. Rome stayed out of the western seas. Peace held until Sicily.
Sicily sat like a football between Italy and Africa. Greek cities on the east, Carthaginian strongholds on the west. In 288 BCE, a band of Italian mercenaries called the Mamertines seized the city of Messana, modern Messina, right at the strait. Carthage sent a garrison to keep order. The Mamertines appealed to Rome for help. Rome hesitated. Helping mercenaries was dishonorable, but if Carthage controlled Messana, she could threaten Italy itself. The Senate debated. The people voted. Rome intervened. In 264 BCE, Roman legions crossed the strait. Carthage declared war. The First Punic War had begun. Rome had no warships, so she built them from nothing. Legend tells of a Carthaginian quinquereme wrecked on Italian shores. Roman shipwrights copied every plank, every rope, every bronze fitting. In 60 days, 60, they launched 100 quinqueremes and 20 triremes. Rowers trained on benches on dry land. Officers learned navigation from Greek allies. They sailed south and immediately learned how dangerous the sea could be. At the Battle of the Lipari Islands, the first Roman consul with a fleet, Gnaeus Cornelius Scipio, sailed confidently into a trap. 17 ships captured, Scipio himself taken prisoner. The Romans called him Asina, donkey, for the rest of his life. But Rome refused to admit defeat. She built another fleet and another. Then came the invention that changed everything, the corvus, a 12-meter boarding bridge mounted on the prow. At its end, a massive iron spike shaped like a raven's beak, corvus in Latin. When dropped onto an enemy deck, it bit deep into the wood. The ships were locked together. Suddenly, a sea battle became a land battle.
Roman legionaries, the finest heavy infantry in the world, could charge across and fight where they excelled. In 260 BCE, off Mylae, the Carthaginian fleet under Hannibal, not the famous one, met the new Roman navy. Hannibal commanded from a captured Roman heptareme, a massive 7 with 7 rowers per oar. He flew captured Roman standards as a trick. The Romans weren't fooled. When Carthaginian ships closed to ram, the corvus fell. Marines stormed aboard. One after another, Carthaginian warships were boarded and captured. 31 Carthaginian ships taken, 14 sunk. Hannibal escaped on a small boat. Rome had won her first naval victory. But Carthage was far from beaten.
Emboldened, Rome planned the knockout blow: invade Africa itself, capture Carthage while her armies were in Sicily. In 256 BCE, the largest fleet ever assembled in the ancient world sailed from Italy. 330 Roman quinqueremes, 150,000 crew and marines. Off Cape Ecnomus, the Carthaginian navy intercepted them. 350 warships under Hamilcar and Hanno. The battle was colossal, lines stretching 10 kilometers, more than 300,000 men fighting on water. The Carthaginians tried their classic maneuver. The center fell back to lure the Romans in. The wings swung around to envelop. But the Roman commanders, Marcus Atilius Regulus and Lucius Manlius Vulso, were ready. They extended their line. The corvus crashed down. Boarding parties swept the enemy decks. By day's end, 30 Carthaginian ships sunk, 64 captured with their crews. Roman losses, 24 sunk, but most crews saved. The road to Africa lay open. Regulus landed near Cape Bone with 40,000 men. He crushed Carthaginian forces at Attis, captured Tunis. Carthage itself was only 20 kilometers away. Terms were offered: surrender the fleet, abandon Sicily and Sardinia, pay massive tribute. Carthage refused. Then arrived a Spartan mercenary named Xanthippus. He reorganized the Carthaginian army, added war elephants, trained cavalry. In 255 BCE, at the Battle of Tunis, Xanthippus annihilated Regulus's army. Elephants smashed the Roman center. Cavalry enveloped the flanks. Only 2,000 Romans escaped. Regulus himself captured. Legend says he was later sent to Rome on parole to negotiate peace, and instead urged the Senate to fight on. Returned to Carthage, knowing torture awaited. His eyelids cut off, crucified. Though modern historians doubt the cruelty, the story shows how deep the hatred ran. Meanwhile, the Roman fleet sailed home victorious until disaster struck. A Mediterranean summer storm. No warning. The fleet hugged the southern Sicilian coast. Waves 20 meters high. Ships smashed on rocks. 300 vessels lost. 100,000 men drowned. The greatest naval disaster in recorded history. Rome's ambition nearly drowned with them. Rome built yet another fleet, a fourth, borrowing money from wealthy citizens, promising repayment from war booty. Carthage, too, rebuilt, hired new admirals. In 249 BCE, off Drepana, Adherbal lured the Roman consul Publius Claudius Pulcher into battle. Pulcher ignored bad omens. Sacred chickens refused to eat. He threw them overboard. If they won't eat, let them drink. The battle was a catastrophe. Carthaginian ships faster, more maneuverable. The corvus, heavy and high, made Roman ships unstable in rough water. 93 Roman ships captured. Pulcher disgraced. His sister later fined for wishing the mob would drown so her brother could have another fleet to lose. Carthage now controlled the seas again, raided Italian coasts, blockaded Sicily. But Rome endured. Private citizens financed a new fleet.
200 quinqueremes built to a lighter, faster design without the corvus, rowers trained for years. In 241 BCE, off the Agates Islands, they met the Carthaginian supply fleet under Hanno, carrying reinforcements and grain for Hamilcar Barca's army in Sicily. The Romans attacked at dawn, caught the Carthaginians loaded heavy with supplies, slow, unprepared. 50 Carthaginian ships sunk, 70 captured, the rest fled. Carthage could not reinforce Sicily. Hamilcar Barca, father of Hannibal, was isolated. He sued for peace. Terms were harsh. Evacuate Sicily, surrender all prisoners, pay 3,200 talents over 10 years, hand over the island of Pantelleria. The First Punic War ended after 23 years. Carthage lost her oldest colonies, her fleet was crippled, her treasury empty, and in the palace of Carthage, a 9-year-old boy named Hannibal watched his father swear an oath of eternal hatred for Rome.
The peace lasted 22 years, but it was poisoned from the start. Carthage faced rebellion from her unpaid mercenaries. The Mercenary War, 3 years of savage fighting across Africa. Crucifixions, massacres. Carthage survived, but weakened. Rome took advantage, seized Sardinia and Corsica in 238 BCE while Carthage was distracted, demanded another 1,200 talents. Hatred deepened. Carthage turned west. Hamilcar Barca led an expedition to Spain, conquered rich silver-mining tribes, founded New Carthage, modern Cartagena, built a new empire to replace the lost one. When Hamilcar died, his son-in-law Hasdrubal continued. Then, in 221 BCE, a 26-year-old Hannibal took command. Rome grew nervous. A treaty limited Carthaginian expansion south of the Ebro River. But when Hannibal besieged Saguntum, a Roman ally south of the Ebro, Rome declared war. The Second Punic War began in 218 BCE, but this time the fighting was on land. Hannibal's legendary march over the Alps, the battles of Trebia, Trasimene, and Cannae, Rome's worst defeats. Yet Carthage's navy remained largely inactive. She sent some raids, captured a few supply ships, but never a major fleet to support Hannibal in Italy. Why? Scholars argue. Perhaps the trauma of the First War, perhaps internal politics, the Barca family distrusted by the merchant aristocracy, perhaps overconfidence in Hannibal's genius. Whatever the reason, it was fatal. Rome built a powerful navy again, kept Hannibal supplied from the sea, cut off any hope of reinforcement. In 202 BCE, Scipio Africanus invaded Africa. Hannibal recalled from Italy. At Zama, Roman legions and Numidian cavalry crushed the Carthaginian army. Terms were crushing. Surrender all warships but 10, all war elephants, no war without Roman permission, indemnity of 10,000 talents over 50 years, lose all overseas territories. Carthage became a client state, her navy reduced to coastal patrol boats. Now Rome ruled the western seas.
50 years of peace followed. Carthage obeyed the treaty, paid the indemnity early. Her trade flourished again. Ships carried African grain, Spanish silver, Italian wine. Rome watched with growing fear. Old men remembered Cannae. Young senators envied Carthaginian wealth. Marcus Porcius Cato visited Carthage in 153 BCE. He saw fat olives, rich fields, busy harbors. He returned to Rome obsessed. Every speech in the Senate, no matter the topic, ended the same way. Ceterum autem censeo Carthaginium esse delendam. And furthermore, I am of the opinion that Carthage must be destroyed. The anti-Carthage faction grew, led by Cato, opposed by Scipio Nasica, who warned that without Carthage, Rome would lose discipline and fall to corruption. But fear won. In 149 BCE, Rome manufactured a casus belli, Numidian raids on Carthaginian territory. Carthage defended herself, violating the treaty clause against war without permission. Rome declared war. The Third Punic War began.
Carthage had no fleet, no allies, no hope. Yet she defied Rome for 3 years. 2 consuls landed with 80,000 men, expected a quick surrender, found triple walls 30 kilometers long, 45 feet high, towers, ditches, 700,000 defenders, men, women, children. The Romans built siege works, were repulsed again and again. Inside the city, panic turned to fury. The council executed pro-Roman leaders, freed slaves, conscripted everyone. Women cut their hair for bowstrings and ropes. Workshops ran day and night, forging swords, spears, shields. Temples stripped of gold. And in secret shipyards inside the circular military harbor, they built a navy from scratch. Old hulls repaired, new ones laid down, oars carved from temple beams. When the Romans finally breached the outer harbor in 147 BCE, they found 120 brand new warships waiting, triremes, quinqueremes, fully crewed. The Carthaginians sorted, fought desperately in the narrow waters, sank several Roman vessels before being driven back. But the harbor entrance was blocked, the fleet trapped. Rome pressed on, street by street, house by house, firepots, arrows, hand to hand in narrow alleys. The young Scipio Aemilianus, adopted grandson of Scipio Africanus, took command in 147 BCE. Methodical, ruthless, he built a mole across the harbor mouth, starved the city. In spring 146 BCE, the final assault. The Byrsa Hill, the heart of Carthage. 6 days of fighting in burning streets. 50,000 survivors surrendered, sold into slavery. Hasdrubal, the last commander, begged for his life. His wife, watching from the temple roof, cursed him as coward, killed their children, leapt into the flames. The city burned for 17 days. Scipio ordered every building demolished, the harbor filled with rubble, a curse pronounced on anyone who resettled the site. Legend says salt was sown into the earth. Modern archaeology finds no evidence, but the symbolism endured. Carthage was gone, her people scattered, her language lost within a century, her gods forgotten. Rome now ruled the entire Mediterranean, Mare Nostrum, our sea. But the victory was hollow. The total war against Carthage taught Rome lessons she would use against others, and eventually against herself. Corruption grew. Generals fought civil wars for power. The Republic fell, the empire rose, and centuries later, when Rome herself burned, some said it was the ghost of Carthage returning. 3 wars, 118 years, 500,000 dead, 2 civilizations pushed to their absolute limits. Carthage gave the world mercantile empire, naval supremacy through trade, the genius of Hannibal. Rome gave the world disciplined conquest, the corvus, the willingness to rebuild fleets again and again and again. When they collided, something had to give, and in the end, only one could remain. The Mediterranean became Roman, but the cost was a city erased, a culture silenced, a warning to every future power: destroy your enemy completely or forever fear their return. If this story of fire, defiance, and annihilation moved you, hit subscribe and ring the bell. We're continuing this series on the wars that shaped our world. Next, Rome against the East, Parthia, the one enemy she could never conquer. Comment below, could Carthage have survived? Would you have fought on the walls of Byrsa,
or stood with Cato in the Senate. Like, share, because the greatest stories of war are the ones that remind us what war truly costs.